Hi, everybody. Good that you're still awake at this bathtub conference. My name is Andreas Ebbert-Karoum. I'm leading the Agile Software Factory for Codecentric, and I would like to share an experience report with you where we introduced a lot of testing techniques in the team, and one of those is acceptance test-driven development, but I will go over the others as well. Okay, so I hope you can see the slides and you can hear me well. So I just start with the presentation. So first, a little bit what this project is about. It was enhancing a web page for an insurance company which already existed, but we wanted to drive the sales a little bit more by giving personalized recommendations, like depending on your situation, you get products recommended with different amount of stars. So you get as quickly as possible to the product pages where prices are calculated immediately with real prices in the back end, so not just dummy calculations. A profile is generated over time, so you, for example, only have to enter your birth date once and not every time for a new calculation. And you have something like a notepad and a brochure which is personalized with your calculations. So that's quite a complex website, not compared to eBay, but for our project it's quite complex. There's an ESB in the back end because it's a multi-customer environment. So, and beginning of February last year, we started that project. It was supposed to go live in September, so we roughly had 7 months time. And we at Codecentric, we were already doing agile development. The customer was not that agile yet. They wanted to. They took the Scrum certification together with us. And we had a team consisting of team members from Codecentric and from the customers. And there were a lot of stakeholders who were interested in what we are doing. And also, not pure agile, we had 2 product owners, one from our company and from the customer. The team member from the customer were testers earlier, so our hope was that they also got into the drive of the agile testing, and all of our Codecentric team members were developers. So what was the IT infrastructure like? We had 3 deployment stages: development, integration, and production. And that was a very tedious and manual deployment process. It had to be manual. The operators wanted it to be that way. They want to have written installation instructions, and they really didn't want to argue to get that any improvement. And I still have to thank our product owners for that. Our first story, so it's in German, but I will translate it to you, is that the testers wanted to be able to do daily testing to detect errors earlier. So that was a nice challenge in the beginning, that we had to find a way to deploy automatically or somehow daily. But interestingly, when you start to seriously look for solutions, you find things. So we discovered that there was a server available for a project which was abandoned. The server was somewhere in the internet, and we routed that server and could basically do whatever we want with it. So we had our own test environment where we could do daily and automated deployments. We since the deployment earlier was really fragile and it was really a hassle to get that done manually, we were really frightened how the automated deployment will work out, and if this is really a good idea. It turned out it was an awesome idea. So we never had so little problems with deployment after we automated that. And still we had our weekly and manual deployments on the following stages. But we were happy we have our own black testing environment. Then we started to work with executable specifications. So what's that? The idea behind that is that you don't have different artifacts for specifying your application and the tests which test your application against the specification, and with a list of examples to explain what the specification means. So you just have one entity, which is the specification, which is a list of examples, and which is the test. We use the robot framework and Selenium mainly for that, and what you see here is a German, in this case, it's a German product, a German test which tests that if you are on a certain page for that product and you enter some values, then eventually there will be an error generated at a certain field in that page and will have a certain style. So since this is a text-only description, our goal was to write these executable specifications at the beginning of each sprint and together with all stakeholders. So that means at least one developer, one of the testers, and one person of the business to think through what you want to do at the beginning of each sprint. The input for the tests could be the acceptance criteria from the user stories. So as you know, each user story has not only the story, but should also have a list of acceptance criteria, and each of these acceptance criteria could turn into one of those executable specifications. This is just then how the reports from Robot Framework look. So in this case, they are bright green. A nice attribute from Robot Framework is that you can tag test cases and group them to get statistics by tags and groups. And we also started in the first sprint to do performance and load tests. Our definition of done mandates that pages load in under 2 seconds. Interestingly, they took longer than 2 seconds before we even started to add our new functionality. So we didn't want to be those who be blamed, and we took measures to gather our arguments in case we were blamed. So we really started doing the performance measurements from sprint 1, and we kicked them off manually, but we did them every sprint, which was very good to gain confidence that we were doing the right things. Also from a technical perspective. As I said, there was an ESB behind, there were a lot of web services calls going on, so it was really also an architectural interesting question if this is fast enough. Actually, what we had to do, interesting fact, we had to do to delay the display of the prices on the website because they were so fast that the user didn't believe that they were actually calculated. So they were fast enough. After 3 sprints, we had to reorganize our test cases. At first, we grouped them into user stories, but that didn't really work out. So the idea of this is you have test cases that you only want to change when the business that the test case is testing is changing, and at no other situation. And also at the lower end, you have your test frameworks libraries. So if you have stable things at the top and at the bottom, but your application keeps changing because you're working in increments and you're refactoring and you're changing how the structure of the application is, you have to have things in the middle to take care of that refactoring. And this could be page objects or business objects to have that variables in between. Okay, that's not for me. Yeah, what was also interesting, we had a little incident in between in May where we forgot to execute a few test cases. Some of the test cases also used the database to seed some data into the database and then see if the website behaves correctly. And these test cases were not allowed to be executed in the 3 manual deployment environments. So we tagged them accordingly, but just due to some misconfiguration, we forgot to execute them at all. So you can see the little ditch in the curve in the lower right corner. But nobody noticed for nearly a month. That was a little disappointing. And after I then generated the charts about how many tests we do have, how many were executed, how many were successful, then that shouldn't really happen again. And you can also see quite nicely that we, over time, wrote more tests. And at the end of the projects, we had tests worth roughly a week worth of manual testing effort. So what did we cover with our test automation? Obviously the browser and database, but we also wrote libraries to test email, file download, and PDF content. For example, one test case is that a user registered on the web page, and then we check the email account for the registration email. We click the link and then check in the database if the user is registered correctly. What we also learned is that if you change a test because the business logic changes, the test will fail on the following stages, so development, integration, production, until the code changes are deployed there as well. Yeah, there are solutions to that. We could branch, we could use the test cases together with the code that is deployed. We haven't done that yet, so that's not perfect, but we know that it's not perfect and can work on it. We started with Internet Explorer and Firefox, but at some point decided Internet Explorer is just too slow. It's about 3 times slower than Firefox with the whole test, basically because all the XPath and CSS locators were so slow to evaluate in Internet Explorer. And we, just as a recommendation, be pragmatic about what you do. Don't always look for the best solution. Sometimes you have to choose the one that works. One example is that the official test environments had network timeouts sometimes. So sometimes a web page is just timeouted with a 15-second timeout, and we really couldn't find out the solutions for that. So we just instructed our test suites that way, that in case a test takes longer than 15 seconds to execute, it's just ignored, but because it's probably hit a timeout. We also played around with style tests, which was an idea how to prevent our website from falling apart because you changed some JavaScript or CSS and you don't notice that some style and layout is not looking as it's supposed to be. So what we did was we took a screenshot of a website, and then we cropped some parts of it, and then we're looking for these exact bitmaps in a new screenshot that we then take every time in the test from the web page. It's a nice idea. It's surprisingly quick. So the search algorithm for the bitmap wasn't really too complicated. It was very straightforward. But still, the tests, we found them a little brittle. And also you have to take them with the machine that is executing the tests, because there are so many display settings that influence how the page is rendered, and you have to match every pixel this way. So that we're still not convinced. I think it's a good idea, but you have to still work on it, and we at some point we closed that